On the margin of whether we improve the trade deficit or not is really nothing in comparison to what might be considered an outright Ponzi scheme in a banking system.
In China is what you're saying, $90 trillion Ponzi scheme in China.
In China, we think that Canada is really just its own housing bubble, its own banks. We think will be caught up in a global debt bubble meltdown when this everything bubble does have its inevitable business cycle correction. Canada in particular has a housing bubble because of all the Chinese money that's been pouring in there.
Is it about the Canadian businesses, the Canadian business banks, that would unravel to such a degree that you're indicating? And my question is also, unravel to what degree? Are you talking about 5%, 10%, or more what we saw in the United States?
Well, in the U.S., the banks were trading at about 1.7 times book value before the global financial crisis, and at the depth of the crisis, they were trading at about 0.7 times book value. But at the same time, book value had been written down by as much as 50% at some of the large banks, and so we see a similar phenomenon. The issue in Canada is that most of the banks are holding the mortgage debt. Canada does not have a big securitization market like the U.S. did, and so it's even more of an acute problem, we think, for Canadian banks. And so if you look at asset write-downs in a housing bust from mortgage write-downs and the deflation of price-to-book values in general, it's pretty easy to get to a 50% kind of a correction for banking stocks.
50%. You actually think that the Canadian banks could decline to the tune of 50%?
At least.